But as I told you, we just recently went to New York, and the conversation there with the people we met is all about the money, right? It's about we're in the heart of Soho, and you look around, it's like, what's the cost of this apartment? It's just money being spoken about, of course, amongst other things. But I came back with that on my mind, right? And then this place where I was, which you said, the relaxed place where you're enjoying what you're doing and you're not panicking about, oh my God, because my wife and I have I think she's a 16-month-old baby. And, you have all those pressures that come with that, like, oh my God, school starts, or what, a preschool, and then school, and then you have to plan for a future. And I came back with all those thoughts, as opposed to me saying I enjoy the conversation and I enjoy these conversations and I learn from that. As you said, sometimes you have these failures or you have these things, but things come out of it, the gems or the learning or the things that you take away from it. But when you're in this mindset of just money and what you need to do to get it and what you need money for and what it's going to do for you, it just almost feels claustrophobic, and you can't think of anything else and what satisfaction those other things give you or the fulfillment those other things give you. So is there a way to do these things without keeping a price tag attached to it, or worrying about it? Because the moment money comes into the conversation, I feel it just flips everything on its head.
You're right. And, so many times recently, even we've had conversations with friends around, what if the world was not driven by money? What if money just disappeared and we just traded services and products and everybody had what everybody needs to survive well and live? I mean, there are people who have more money than they'll even be able to fathom in their lifetime and in 5-6 generations of their loved ones. And some people have none at all. And I mean, that's just so ridiculous. But in the end, I speak from experience. I have been very stressed about money in my earlier years. And Margarita was obviously privy to this. And Margarita always had more of a trust factor around money. And, it's there and it's going to be fine. And we're resourceful and we're always going to make it work, And for me, it was always like, oh, thank God we had that client, because where would we have been? Or thank God. And it was always, even though we were doing well, it was always a bit of a survival speak, And I remember my coach saying to me, why do you always speak like you're in survival mode? And I was like, well, because I feel like we're in survival mode, but we're not. I mean, it felt like we were, and sometimes we truly are.
Yeah.
But the majority of the time, it's just this concept of more and better, and more is better, and it really, and it's funny. Recently, just in our last coaching session, how when people say, "Oh, this happened to me." And then now the conversation recently shifted to this happened for me instead of to me. You take a little bit more responsibility, right? And in our last coaching session, we were talking about this happened from me. And I thought, that's actually pretty amazing when you think about that. So when you think about things don't happen to you, they don't necessarily happen for you, but they happen from you. So whatever you see happening, it's basically you created. So this gives a sense of maybe a bit of control, because if something is happening, you can't control it. There's nothing to be done about that. But I can control my thoughts. And that's much easier said than done, by the way. Everybody knows that we all want to control our thoughts and slow down, and it's much easier said than done. But ultimately, what were you going to say?
Well, and on the note of thoughts, I think if you relate that back to money, for me, when I started to really treat money like energy, and that it has a flow, it comes in, it goes out, comes in, it goes out. When I started trusting what was going out and trusting what was coming in, the flow, the manifesting of the flow becomes more, I don't know if it's effortless or more abundant, or maybe just because I trust in it more, it feels like it is there. So I trust in that, and it ends up changing my relationship to or with money.
That's lovely. I'm like that. I mean, I don't haven't looked at it as an energy kind of context, but I when I think of money as a responsible person, it annoys me because I've never been responsible about money. I've never saved and invested. And so when I hear that, of course you get on YouTube, you're like, you're 40 and you haven't invested. Are you crazy? And I'm like, oh my God, am I crazy? But, but realistically, I love spending on others. And but I don't call it, I don't call it like philanthropic work. I just, when I was younger, it would be, okay, you know what? You don't have a beer in your hand. I'm going to buy everyone a round of beers, because I felt that at the end of the evening, I'm not counting how many dollars or rupees I have in my pocket, but people had a good time. And that mattered more for me than how much I'm going back home with. But if I take that forward to today, and, I have a family now, and if I say, if I tell my wife, hey, I'm going out with 1,000 rupees and I'm going to come back with absolutely nothing, because you know what? Who cares about tomorrow? She's like, are you crazy? You have a kid to look after. So where does that change? Because I like the idea of letting money be just a tool. But at the same time, where does the responsibility of providing for your family or your future or for whatever it may be, taking care of you? Because let's be honest, you need money to live, right? But can we separate the responsibility aspect? Because as you said, Isabelle, there are people who can barely make the end of the day because they don't have any money. And then there are people who've got generations worth of wealth, which just keeps growing without them doing anything, because of the way it is. But more than the actual amount of money or money as a reward system, can we change the psychology of how we and as you said, Margarita, the energy aspect of money? But like, if we can have fun with money, right? Does money have to be a serious thing? Every time we talk about it, it's like investment.
Exactly.
Can we have yeah.
And in fact, one thing that we've implemented years and years ago, and it's going to sound a bit weird, but we have a gambling fund, and we don't gamble. It's not like I go to Vegas and gamble my money.
Mm-hmm.
However, we are responsible. She is more responsible than I am money-wise, but
well, which is a good thing, because I manage it.
I make it, and she manages. I mean, we all have our roles. However, it's this gambling fund started because in our previous business, I would test things sometimes with designs and with things. We had a branding agency, and some things worked well and some things flopped. And every time it flopped, I felt so bad. I felt like, oh, such a waste of time and energy and money. And so at the time, our coach had said, we've been coached our entire life together. And we're 10 years ahead of our business plan all the time as a result of being coached. But he said to us, what is such a big deal here? You made an experiment. It didn't go well. Sometimes you're going to make an experiment. It's going to go well. Sometimes you're going to go out. It's going to cost you more than than some other times. So we have times where we take some of our money and put it somewhere and pray that it's going to make babies. And we have a place where we have money where we can do what we want with it. It might be buying a software and seeing if it, and then it turns out to be shitty. That's fine. It might be that we're going to take a different mode of transportation to get from A to B and test that out. It might be that we want to actually do an experience together and not feel guilty about it. So the goal, how that started, was exactly to remove our mind, mainly my attachment to be effective and proactive and smart with money, and just give myself a bit of slack around the money in that place is not to be thrown just in the garbage, obviously, but it's no matter what we do with it, whether it's positive or it ends up being a flop, it's okay. It's safe. It's a little bit like on your birthday, there are no calories. That's the kind of account that we have for that. And it's taught me so much, actually.
And I think if we go back to the concept that money is energy and it flows in, it flows out, it's also about managing our reactions to things. So let's say an opportunity comes in, you really want it, you don't get it. You could spend a very long time being upset or pitying yourself or whatever it is because you didn't get that opportunity. And if you stay in that, you're going to miss the next opportunity in the flow, right? So if you trust that that opportunity came and it went and it wasn't meant for you, you'll be ready for the next opportunity. And it's the same when money's going out. You know, you win some, you lose some, right? And
Yeah.
if you get stuck in the energy of one or the other, you miss the next thing.
Right. But you mentioned that the two of you have an understanding about who handles what, and you figured out this place that you've arrived at over the past years. But sometimes in a relationship, Margarita, you said you handle and you manage the money, right? Which is great that you both have the trust that you're going to do the right thing for both of you. But in many cases, there's the dynamics of the relationship and money don't really go well, because it becomes a power play, right? It becomes a thing where, whether it's the man or the wife, or the husband or the wife, or whoever it may be, the partners, if one person has control of the finances, it doesn't bode too well for the other partner. And as a result, what happens then, it becomes that, if both people in the relationship have money, like I see this in India, right? Like right now, like the woman, especially because it's been, the odds are stacked against women in India for many years. It's like, oh no, I have to work. And as a result, I can't be at home. And then it just plays different numbers in the relationship. And as a result, money either becomes a thing of breaking the relationship or weighing the scales against one person in the relationship.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll just clarify something. Like, I manage the money.
Mm-hmm.
However, from the beginning, we've treated each other like employees from the beginning.
Okay.
So we are everything is even, everything is fairly divided. Over the years, I mean, it has been over 30 years. So over the years, she's trusted how I manage the ins and outs of the money. But at any moment, I in no way am the only one that can.
No.
If she needed ever to jump in, she could. She has access to everything I have access to. So I think it's
there was a time though that when I was more uptight with money, there was moments where we disagreed, like you wanted to do certain things or manage a certain way. I'm not quite sure. I can't have a good example right now, but I remember being more stressed about it than you were. And
well, you were more tied to outcomes then.
I was very tied to outcome. I still am to a certain degree, but I've relaxed around that. And so, I mean, there's cultural differences, there's men, women differences, there's depends on how you were raised, where you were raised, how much your family had money versus not had money. I mean, we have money triggers left, right, and center on this planet, right?
Yeah.
We also started this from the ground up.
Right.
Like we
were 18, so it's not like
we both came in with the bare
zero.
minimum. Zero.
Yeah.
So we've grown this together, which is also different. It's different when somebody in a relationship comes in and one is already established and the other one's not. Right. It's a different dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're getting me to realize that there's so many, because we're two women together, first of all. I mean, in 30 years ago, this was not an easy conversation to have with our parents that are absolutely Catholic to the bones, but despite, it's funny, a lot of couples have a variety of different issues, trust issues, money issues, they don't agree on how to raise the children. And so we thought we were going to have a very big issue, which is we're two women together. We're going to have to like prove ourselves the whole time in our careers. And funny enough, that was not that much of an issue. And because we got together really young, we grew together, we were coached together. So there's a lot of these issues, money issues, and not to say that there isn't, but I guess it maybe is less because we grew up together, we were coached together, of course, we went like this a few times, obviously apart and together and apart and together. It has not been all rainbows and unicorns. But I'm realizing that there's a level of maturity that we've gained over the years that I'm like realizing that in this moment, going, oh, we've done a good chunk of work,
Yeah.
Not to say, not to pat myself on the back by no means, but it's a nice realization to say, wow, we've gone through a shit ton, and we're here, and we're still together, and we had money issues and trust issues at some point, and being two women together issues, and we're artists, for crying out loud. We could have been told a million times, don't go get yourself a real job,
Yeah. No, and
but we're ourselves, and we thought we're just going to stay with the camera. We're just going to stay who we are, and we're going to follow our hearts, and we're going to support each other in that journey. And we're going to try not to kill each other throughout. That's how it goes.
That's the, besides all the other things, this is what is amazing about it, right? Like anything else is, an add-on, but just this part of your relationship, your story is something which is amazing.